If you've ever thought to yourself, I thought storytelling was supposed to be easy, why does it feel so hard to do? It's not just you. Storytelling can be easy, but it can also be very confusing and frustrating. Here's the thing, anything that is hard to do usually has the chance of a greater payoff in the end. Storytelling is absolutely one of those things. Here's why it's worth learning how to do it well. Welcome to the Story Greenlight podcast, where we're all about empowering creators like you to tell your stories, connect with your audience, and create the impact that you were put on this planet to make. My name is Jeff Bartsch. I'm a coach, author, and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience shaping content for ABC, NBC, Universal, Disney, Apple, and a whole bunch of others. My team and I support creators with followings in the hundreds to the many millions. At Story Greenlight, we believe that you matter, your message matters, and the world needs to hear what you have to say. I want to start here with an idea. It's a trade-off. It goes like this. The simpler the story, the smaller the result. The more involved a story is, the greater the chance for a greater result, but the harder it is to get it. I'm going to say that again. General rule of thumb. The simpler the story, the smaller the result. The more complex and involved a story is, the greater the chance for a greater result, but the harder it is to get it. So ever thought that something was supposed to be really easy and then you got into it and you realized, oh, this has a lot more going on than I thought? Well, yes. That's basically, among many other things that I've experienced in my life like that, that was my journey getting started in YouTube. My YouTube journey started in 2017, and I thought, having many years under my belt doing high-end broadcast television editing in Los Angeles, I thought, oh, well, I know all about editing and presenting stories and pictures and moving. I make TV, for crying out loud. How hard could this be? Well, fact of the matter is, YouTube is a very different animal, and it doesn't just magically happen. Also, in my case, it's one thing to be able to know how to edit content. It is another thing entirely to be able to plan, conceive, shoot, then edit, then upload your content. That's all sorts of extra learning curves right there. So yes, I thought it would be easy, but there's a lot more than just fancy editing, and it's a lot more than just fancy equipment. Same thing with storytelling. It can be easy, but it can also be confusing, and it can be really hard to do well. Here's some reasons why storytelling can get kind of funky and confusing. Number one, it takes lots of different forms. I mean, it can show up in long form, it can show up in short form. You can have barely any equipment to use it at all, or in its most basic sense, storytelling can show up just one person talking to another person on the street, or you talking to a person across the room. But specifically when creating video content, when creating video storytelling, it can be short form, it can be long, it can use hardly any equipment at all, or it can take parking lots full of trucks, full of equipment. There was a time when we were still living in California, and I would walk to the train station to get down into the city, and there would be times when when movie studios would be doing these big shoots in the area up in the hills next to the train station, and they had an entire parking lot full of production trucks. It was just like semi-truck after semi-truck after semi-truck, and it was just crazy. It's really easy for people living in that world to think, oh, well, this is how it should be. This is doing it right. Well, the good news is you don't have to have all that. You hardly have to have any of that, but you do have to be able to wrap your head around it. And it's, and this is where things get kind of tricky sometimes, because it can show up in a lot of different forms, and it can be simple or it can be super complicated. You can tell a story in just one still image. You can make the argument that the Well, it's not a very difficult argument to make. I mean, just look at paintings on the walls of caves, however many stretches of time old they actually are, or look at the insides of Egyptian tombs and all the hieroglyphics and everything. Those are documentaries in still form of what things happened during those times. You can have still images. You can have a talking head for 30 seconds. You can have an epic series of multiple hour movies. I mean, it can show up, storytelling with video can show up in all these different time lengths. Super simple or very complex, very complicated. Here's another level to this. Anyone can do it to a certain level, but the higher up you go, the fewer people can do it well. Think about this. Just because I can tell you what I had for lunch yesterday, and so could you, assuming you ate lunch. Anyway, that means both of us can tell each other a story. So that's one thing, but telling a story that grabs people's attention and holds that attention for a little bit takes thought and practice. Keeping people's attention with a story for a long amount of time, that takes a lot of thought and a lot of practice. If you're one of the people who's been able to get over one of the biggest fears that human beings have, other than death, is standing up in front of people and talking to them, there's a good number of people who can give a decent, solid speech that's short form. But you add the element of time with a 60-minute speech, that is much harder to do. A lot of people can tell a story into their cell phone, but if you add extra elements of video and sound and music and timing and editing and all that stuff, the payoff can be greater and it's harder to do. Thanks to YouTube, there are lots and lots of people now who can pull out their camera and stick it in front of their face and walk down the street, or maybe roll down the street on a skateboard or something like that, and they can shoot and edit a vlog. But if you want to tell a story by showing it unfold without telling the audience what's happening, that's when you're getting into the world of traditional TV and film. That is much, much harder to do, and it is much easier to get it wrong when you get to that place. And of course, this is why people who don't realize how hard it is to do are usually the ones most likely to say TV sucks or movies are lame and all that stuff. Point is, it takes time and practice to figure out how to do it. And even then, on top of this, to add insult to injury, you still won't get it right all the time, because it's not just you. Nobody gets it right all the time. So with all these ideas, the question then becomes, why should we bother with storytelling at all? Well, and I'll tell you why. Because the payoff is huge. Going back to this trade-off, the simpler the story, the smaller the result you're going to get. Most times. The more involved a story is, the more elements you add to it, the greater the chance for a greater result, but the more difficult it is to get it. Inquiring minds want to know, what is that payoff? What is that promise that storytelling offers? Well, let's talk about that. Number one, storytelling offers you more influence. People will listen to what you say. When you get someone telling you a powerful story or setting up their content within the context of a story, people are far more likely to listen to what you say during that story and what you say after it. If you're a content creator, people will watch more of your content. At that, straight up numbers. Tell a great story, weave that throughout your content, engage people that way. Your viewing retention will go up by the numbers. When you tell a great story, people will believe what you tell them to believe. The most powerful most effective, well-known, life-changing, world-altering teachers who ever walked the face of the planet, they all used stories or parables. And those stories or parables are hugely powerful tools to help shift people's beliefs, how they see the world. When you tell a great story, people will do what you tell them to do. They will watch more of your content if you're a content creator. They will buy your product or your service if you have one to sell. There are billions upon billions of dollars spent in advertising every year, and the number one driver of all these advertisements is storytelling. When you get really great at telling stories, you will not only have more influence, you will also create human connection. There's a way that story has of letting you into the heart and mind of other people. It helps you empathize with them. It helps you understand them more. And when you start understanding people, then you care more about them, about who they are and what they do. One of the biggest examples that continues for me is the idea of one of my longest running client work gigs for the NBC network. It's a show called American Ninja Warrior. If you're not familiar with Ninja, call it Ninja for short, it is a hit television show that airs on the NBC network here in the United States, and it shows athletes trying to get through this massive obstacle course, and it requires incredible grip strength and dexterity and flexibility and just overall guts to be able to get through it. And if you get through the first course, there are multiple other levels, and the whole goal of the show is to finish all the levels of all the courses and climb up this huge tower and within 30 seconds, and that means you've achieved total victory. It is people running an obstacle course. It's people seeking to overcome obstacles. And if you're familiar with what I talk about storytelling, the master story framework is where a character wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. Obstacles are a fundamental part of the human existence, a fundamental part of our human journey. And so that's number one of the reasons why that television show has been running as of this recording. We're working on the 14th season. And my role with the show is to tell the stories of the people who go on that course and take on those obstacles before they even set foot on the course. Why do we do that? Well, if you know someone's story, we are far more likely to care about them. If you don't know anything about the person who's trying to get through this obstacle course, you don't care if they win or they lose, or if they don't, you don't care if they make it to the end or not. So, that right there, that is a fundamental part of the show that creates human connection between the viewer and those people going on that course. And that's something that you can use when it comes to telling stories in your content. It will create human connection between you, your content, your brand, your idea, your mission, and the people that you're talking to. And the other thing that storytelling will do when you do it well, this might sound like an overstatement, but I'm promising you it's not. Telling stories well can help you find more personal fulfillment in your life. Told you, it's kind of a big statement, but here's the thing. Storytelling gives you an opportunity to solve problems for people. It helps you be of service to others. It helps your people have a better life. It gives you an opportunity to be part of something greater than yourself. It helps you have an opportunity frankly, to create something and put it out into the world and create meaning by doing what you're doing for the people looking at the size of the world and however many billion people there are in the world. I think it's something about 7 or 8 billion people on the face of the planet right now, and you're feeling super small. The fact of the matter is, if you can tell a great story with a great message that connects with another person, you are creating meaning in the world. You can do that just by doing this. And when you do that, you also have the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. You have the opportunity not just to be served, but to serve other people. I get that this might sound like an overblown kind of a thing, and people might say, dude, there are lots of other ways to get this stuff. And I would say you're absolutely right. There are tons of ways to increase your personal influence, to create human connection, and find greater personal fulfillment in your life. But think about this. How many things have the possibility to do all that at the same time? Telling a great story can do that in a way that many, many other things can't. And I'm just going to keep raising the stakes here. I'm just going to say that not only does storytelling give you the possibility to get all these things, storytelling with video gets you more of these things faster and easier. And here's why. Storytelling with video lets you multiply yourself. It's not just you talking to one person. You get to do this at scale. You have the opportunity to tell your story or to spread your message from, instead of just talking to one person, you can do it to a very specific targeted group of people, say people who come to your website or people who ask for an inquiry of what you're doing or how you can help them. Or you can put the videos on a place like YouTube and have the opportunity for them to be seen by thousands or even millions of people, depending on how you do it and who you're talking to and how you understand YouTube. When you tell a great story with video, you also have extra elements to help amplify your message. Again, there are people who can just absolutely rivet the attention of anyone that they interact with just by virtue of their personality and their message and the words and their face and their body language and all that thing. Those people do exist. Most of us people are not them. And that's totally fine. Using storytelling with video lets you bring in all sorts of extra elements that help you amplify what you do and the message that you're spreading. When you do things like appearing on camera, all of a sudden it's not just the words that you would be typing in a blog post or texting to someone. You have vocal tone, which you can also get through a podcast. I'm very aware of the irony of making this pitch for storytelling with video when I know that a good chunk of the audience was going to be hearing this as an audio only thing. Totally cool. This is all part of the plan, my friends. All good. Thing is, when you add video to the mix, not only do people hear the words, understand the words that you're saying, they hear the tonality in your voice. They see your face. They can see your expression. They usually can see parts of your body. They can see your hands waving around. They can see you doing things like that. That right there is a huge element. That's a huge enhancement of human communication, to be able to see the person, not only just to comprehend the message, but also to hear it and to see it. And not only can you do that, you get to add pictures, you get to add imagery, you get to add either stills or video or video footage. You can add all sorts of extra elements to help support your claim, to support your message, to support the story that you're telling. And when people do this and say you add music to it, all these things give you extra tools to amplify and ratchet things up, especially music. Music is an incredibly emotional tool that amplifies anything that it's put up in context with. Music is an amplifier of emotion. It can also be used to play against the emotion and create dissonance and all that other things, but it's easy to get off into the weeds and all that. There are exceptions to almost all of these things. I'm just talking in broad strokes. So storytelling is one thing. It's always been powerful. Adding the pieces of picture and sound does make things more involved, for sure. But the trade-off is you have the possibility to get far more powerful results with them. And the ways of doing that are far more accessible to anyone than it ever has been before. And when you do it well, the payoff is so worth it. What content creator, what business, what brand doesn't want to increase their influence with the people who are engaging with their content? How would it not be of benefit to you to be able to speak into what people feel, what they believe, what they do, to be able to create human connection and help other people understand other human beings, create more empathy? God knows we need more empathy in the world these days. And the idea of finding your greater personal fulfillment in your life, moving forward in what you're put on this planet to do. Video storytelling is an incredibly powerful and possible and achievable way to do that. If you want to learn more about applying storytelling to your own content, I have two ways to help you do that. The first is I have a free guide for how to tell a story on YouTube, and it'll tell you how to use video to tell your stories no matter what your audience size may be or your storytelling experience. You can check that out in the link in the video description or the show notes. And if you would like ideas for how to apply this stuff to your own content, if you would like help actually doing it, then you should consider joining us in the Green Room. It is our monthly membership here at Greenlight that helps its members unlock the next level of impact in their storytelling, in their content, and also in themselves as creators. And you can get access to the Green Room for a full month for free. You can check that out by hitting the link in the description below or in the show notes. And I will see you there.